My name is Tammy Jackson. I live in Westover and I did the pilgrimage last year, the 2-day, 25-mile pilgrimage.
I'm Karen Molina. I live in Wilmington and I was a teacher for 30 years in the Wilmington schools.
I'm Hope Phelan. I live in West Halifax, Vermont. Last year I did a portion of the Deerfield Valley pilgrimage.
My name is Greg Soleil. I'm a volunteer for the Deerfield Valley Pilgrimage Walk.
I am Twyla Wallace and I live here in Wilmington, Vermont.
My name's Jim LaBelle and my first pilgrimage was at the Deerfield Valley Pilgrimage Walk last year.
I'm Debbie Rathnam. I live in Wilmington, Vermont, and I helped to organize the pilgrimage and walked on the pilgrimage last year.
Hello, my name is Lincoln Rathnam, and I went on the pilgrimage last year, 2022. I was also one of the organizers of the pilgrimage.
A couple of years ago, Lincoln Rathnam said, "Why don't we do a pilgrimage?" And I jumped on the idea right away because I'm a hiker. So it was kind of interesting to me that here we are in the Deerfield Valley and we might do it.
My experience with the pilgrimage wasn't so much a religious experience, but more of a spiritual and nature-based experience. We were having a lot of health complications with my husband, and it was a time for me to kind of reground myself and find some peace and love and healing in nature. And it was a really grounding experience.
Last year was the first year, and I decided to do a little bit at the end, the last 2 miles, because my friend Tina from Germany has done all the European pilgrimages, and so she was really excited about having a local pilgrimage to do. She signed up to do the whole thing, but I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. I didn't think they could do the whole thing. So she brought her kids and I brought my kids, and a bunch of other children came too. They had a great time. It was like a big child parade. They got to see the Scottish Highlander cows, which they loved. It was a beautiful sunny day.
I didn't know what to expect. I don't really know much about pilgrimages, and I didn't really have a clear idea of what it was going to be like. I'm kind of one of those people who just I do something first and then find out what it's about afterwards sometimes. Just headed out with the group and found that it was a really interesting experience, different from what I imagined it would be. I think it took like a whole day just to sort of get into a different frame of mind. And on the second day we were walking on roads more that made it register that here's a group of us, we're doing something different from the ordinary. That's how that second day affected me, and that really felt like that was being on pilgrimage. Maybe there's just a period where it takes some time to get out of your normal day-to-day mode of life. But the first day was really pleasant, beautiful walk through the woods, so we were all getting to know each other that first day. I think by the second day we settled more into just the rhythm, I guess you could say, of just being out walking together. And I think it felt a little more contemplative that second day. And because we do have a pretty spectacular final destination to get to, so that kind of carried us through that last climb.
My wife and I have thought about going to England to do some of the pilgrimages there, but it hasn't happened yet. But it happened here last year. And what was interesting to me was that I initially thought of it more as a hike. Oftentimes I'm out in front, I'm away from the crowd, and I like the quietness. And it seems to seep into me that the stillness and the quiet, it gives me a chance to think and pray actually. It became very sensitive to me as we went through it. It was definitely a change for me.
I came with my wife Martha, who had a few years before done the Camino pilgrimage, famous pilgrimage in Spain, over 3 weeks' time. And she had a wonderful experience. It was a spiritual experience, and I was interested in having a small version of that, walking for the 2 days. And we did walk the full amount, and we had, 50 people total? Everybody was just so nice to each other. There was a wonderful community aspect of spending 2 days with these folks. And it was wonderful having a chance to have long conversations with people as we were walking for several hours.
I loved the conversation with people, and I also loved the times of solitude. And there's times to connect with people, but there were also times of real solitude. Nature all around you, the farms we passed by, and the beautiful back roads of Vermont, the valley.
Being an organizer, you don't have the same feeling as the other walkers while it's going on, because you're worrying that things will go right, that no one's going to get lost in the woods. There's things that you're concerned about. And the other volunteers were showing up and keeping us up to date as to how it was going. But for me, it was almost a vicarious experience of seeing the people who came and arrived in the Deerfield Valley, some of them for the first time, some as far away as Florida, and how much they appreciated it. They found a fellowship and an excitement and a sense of accomplishment, of stepping out of their ordinary everyday lives into something more personal and deeper.
When Lincoln was talking about the possibility of doing the pilgrimage here in the Deerfield Valley, I was very excited because of the experiences that I had had in Spain. This has been a resurgence in the last probably 50 years of people again being interested in doing pilgrimages. And the pilgrimage through Spain really gave me an insight into the importance of the creation of community and the aspect of introspection. And I'm truly excited that people here will be able to experience something that's happening all around the world. One of the things that I suggested in the planning was that we incorporate this tradition of carrying a stone into the activities that go along with the pilgrimage here.
At the Ephesus house, there was a very moving ceremony of stones, which had been introduced at the beginning of the first day. People were asked to pick up a stone anywhere along the walk, and the stone could mean many different things to them. Some were thinking of it as a burden that they were giving up, or some perhaps thought of it as a remembrance. And all the stones were collected. There were a number of young children at the closing ceremony, and so Jeremy Kirk, who was conducting the closing, had the children gather the stones in a glass vase, and he said a prayer. I think people found it very meaningful. You didn't have to be religious to find meaning in that kind of ceremony. And Mary Terranelli, who built Ephesus House, where we concluded the walk, talked about why she had built it out in the wilds of Jamaica, Vermont, an unusual setting for a replica of a house in Turkey. But she has a very interesting story to tell, and it was a great conclusion to the walk.
It ended at the beautiful Ephesus house, and it has a great big lawn for the kids to run around in. It was a really positive experience. We had a lot of fun.
I helped with the registration desk, and the other volunteer who helped was a woman named Liz Luca, who wasn't able to walk on the pilgrimage for physical reasons, but she's been a very enthusiastic volunteer. There was also a young woman who had worked for the Carmelites in India. It was very spiritual. It was an interesting mix of people, and Professor Mills, who was one of the speakers that day, also joined us. He's a professor of environmental studies. And he wrote a book about pilgrimages. I suppose one of the experts in the field, to the extent that there are experts in the field of pilgrimages. On the second day of the walk, we met a fascinating couple, at South Wardsboro Congregational Church. This was a very elderly couple who opened up the church for us so that we could picnic on their front steps. They showed us around the church, which was built in the late 1700s. It still has no electricity and no running water, but they invited us to use the outhouse. A couple who were up from Tampa, Florida, said they could hardly wait to go home and tell their friends about this outhouse that they had been using.
So one of the most surprising and encouraging things about the pilgrimage was the desire to participate on the part of people of all ages and physical levels of fitness and capability. We had, I think the oldest person was 88 years old, lady who did very well, and youngest going down to 6 months was being carried, and there was another couple kids in strollers. People who could only do 2 miles did 2 miles. People who could only attend the ceremonies at the end did that. Others walked the full 25 miles. Others walked 1 day of 2. So it was something that everyone felt they were part of and enjoyed it.
The whole walk was a very interesting experience, but relaxing, calming experience, I think, for everyone involved. It was a long walk, but I think everybody was satisfied that they had accomplished whatever goals they had come to accomplish, and I think people did the pilgrimage for lots of different reasons, not necessarily a specific reason.
We always have such wonderful support along the way. There's so many people in this community that are recruited and say yes to being snack providers, water providers, transportation help, feeding us.
Now, the volunteers were not walking because there was 20 of them, and they were busy in setting up water stops and organizing the registration and keeping track of all those things, and then in driving our sort of carpool. We kept a fleet of cars going along the route so that pilgrims and walkers who wanted to take a break and wanted a lift or had hurt their foot or something and wanted to ride the rest of the way or go back to their cars would have easy transportation. But these people had the same air of excitement and accomplishment when the pilgrimage was over as the walkers, and it was a real celebration at the end, a very moving ceremony.
Very, very giving people in this community. Very loving people that are interested in things like this. So it's a privilege to be a part of it.
We were opening ourselves to something bigger. For me, that's God. For other people, it's maybe something else. But whatever it was, that's what we were there for. And I sensed that as people, non-pilgrim people, were passing us and interacting with us, that we actually had a role to perform in society of representing that possibility to other people, that you can take time off from your day-to-day life to open yourself to something bigger and wider and maybe more important than what we normally focus on.
There was another part of it that I was attracted to, and that was the opportunity for contemplative prayer. My sister-in-law was in the process of having an illness that was causing her organs to shut down. We thought that there was no way that she was going to be able to survive this situation. It was so serious. The first day of the pilgrimage, I did the Jesus prayer asking for mercy upon my sister-in-law. And it was a really positive thing to do in a situation where I didn't feel like I had any control over what was going to happen to her. It took a while, but she was able to have a complete recovery. And I don't credit myself in my prayer for that, but there are mysteries in life that we can't explain. And I certainly feel that that was a good way for me to spend my time.
And I love the idea of going within and connecting with our higher power, whatever we call that spirit. I feel like it's a a very important part of our lives on this earth, and for us all that are willing to tap into that and do things that encourage that, and this pilgrimage is one of those things.
Especially as we go through life, as we all have to kind of walk our own walk, hike our own hike, and keep trying to move forward.
You know, I read some place that we can go through our entire lives without ever figuring out who we are. You have an image of yourself, it reflects what other people are, but it's really in some activity like walking and in a certain degree of solitude and reflection that you start to make this discovery. And with that discovery comes a sense of peace and oneness with nature and with the world and with God, if you're a spiritual person, as we are, most of us. So it appeared to me that this pilgrimage accomplished all of that.